galleries they got.
Oh, yeah.
They got 92 galleries to look at photos.
Well, you think about it, that's an awful lot of years.
Mm-hmm. Go to page 1 and 2 about that.
They're super cool, those old photos. Again, looking at them on a phone doesn't do it justice.
Wow.
You see, most of those guns...
Telephone poles for legs for the benches.
Wooden benches, yep.
With a strung up, looks like a tarp over their head.
Yep, for the sun.
Keep them in the shade.
You guys were looking at that big bench gun standing there in the corner earlier. You can go ahead and show that if you want. Show them on the camera. That big bench gun right there. And they picked it up and they said, oh, this is a big gun. Well, that gun weighs about 25 pounds approximately. Many of the guns in those photos right there weigh between 50 and 100. Many of them. A lot of them just use two guys to set it up on the bench. The one interesting thing about that is, though, they kind of found this out over experience, is going heavier and heavier and heavier wasn't necessarily the path to more and greater accuracy. It actually ended up being that a lot of the really heavy guns didn't shoot as good as lighter guns, and that has to do with the way they recoil.
69 people in this competition in June of '68.
Well, that long ago. And see,
which was their first match.
Yes, so this is part of the story. I actually wrote this article for Precision Shooting Magazine, and that's when I went and interviewed Howard Wolf and did all that. But see, what a lot of people don't realize is those guys in the East were shooting groundhogs at long range. And back then, you know, to the average guy, long range was 200 or 300 yards. Well, these guys were shooting groundhogs 600, 700, 800, 900 yards away, using really specialized stuff.
Look what's on the
here,
first page of it.
Here, hold that back up there.
Yeah, I doubt you'll be able to see it.
Bad action.
Really?
Yeah, right on the bottom of it.
Huh. So, well, BAT's only been around for like 25 years, so it can't be a super old one, right? They're advertising. So what I'm saying is they were groundhog hunters. They were varmint hunters. And they decided to get together to have a competition to see whose rifle was most accurate. That's all it was at the beginning. They just wanted to go there and shoot, right? And they did, and it ended up becoming a 1,000-yard bench rest club. And again, you'd have to look up all the information. I'm just pulling this out of the air right now, but all the records, all the 1,000-yard records for years and years and years were held there. That's where they were held. That group of guys. And even back when I was there, it was somewhat more popular. There would be sometimes, over 150 people at a shoot. And I don't mean total people, I mean competitors. They'd bring all their families and, camp out and everything. There'd be maybe 300 people there. And it was cutting edge stuff, absolutely. And so that's a lot of this, that's where I learned it. And then you realize too that I started buying custom guns. I think maybe I bought my very first custom gun by the time I was like 21. And so, somewhere in that range. And so then that was a huge learning curve also.
Who did you buy your first gun from?
I don't actually want to even say who. Because my initial experiences were bad. And that's partly how that we established what our business policies would be. And it's really not business policies, it's just the way you're going to treat people. But I will say this. There was one where I nearly had to get in a fist fight with a guy because he wouldn't give me my money back and the gun wouldn't shoot. One where I nearly had to sue a guy because he wouldn't give me my money back because the gun wouldn't shoot. And the interesting thing about that is, back in those days, if you said, okay, I'm thinking of a specific gun. I think that was a 7 STW. And you wanted a 7, and in fact, there's a set of STW dies right there. So whatever year that's from, that's probably about in that 1980s range somewhere. Or it might not have been, because I was into 7. So I had like a 7 STW, a 7x300 Winchester, 7x300 Weatherby, a 284 Bear. I had a whole bunch of 7s. But anyways, this guy, he was good at building PPCs. He's still around, I think. And he built me a big 7. And I told him when he built it, I said, I need this gun to shoot like, 3/4 of an inch, which back in those days, 3/4 of an inch out of a hunting gun was pretty good, right? And like consistently. And the gun would shoot like 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. It just wouldn't shoot. And the one thing I learned out of that, and this is part of my philosophy on it is, and if you're actually looking at me, a good gun will shoot immediately. It'll shoot right away. It'll shoot something good. a bad gun, a gun that you have to hunt for the load, like, oh, I have to try this bullet and this bullet and this bullet, and I tried 14 different powders and 38 different primers and all that, that's not a good gun. And even if you can find something that will shoot, it's still not a good gun. So anyways, I bought one off of that guy and it didn't shoot, and then I bought one off another guy and it didn't shoot much better, and I bought one off another guy and it didn't shoot. And then I actually bought one off of a guy, and it was an accident. It was a pure accident. I mean, it's not like the guy is a good guy. This guy, he built. He doesn't even do guns anymore. He does something else. I won't say what because he's a good guy. But I ordered, I believe, a 7mm something, and when I got it, I happened to look at the end of the barrel, and that's what it was marked. I think it was a 7-300 Weatherby maybe, and it had a 30 caliber barrel in it. 7mm cartridge, 30 caliber barrel. So, and then he went and looked, and he had put a 30 caliber, no, he put a 30 caliber barrel on my 7mm. He'd put a 7mm barrel on a 30 caliber cartridge. Ooh. Now, mine, if you could have chambered one, mine wouldn't have been dangerous because it's a smaller bullet going up a bigger hole. But the other gun that he built, which was still in the shop, was a bigger bullet trying to go up a smaller hole. That would have been dangerous. So anyways, every one of those experiences, each time I would have one of those experiences, I would say, well, I'm not going to do that. And that one I just told you about, that last one, which literally scared the tar out of me, and scared him worse, by the way. That other gun never made it to a customer, and I sent mine back. But I realized at that moment, hey, if you just shoot every gun, this can never happen. That could never happen. It would have been possible. If he would have took that gun out to try to shoot it himself, he would have caught his error immediately, and nobody would have ever known about it, except him. And he would have fixed it, and there would have been no danger to anybody. Plus, all of those guns that didn't shoot, even if they would have just took them out and put 10 shots through them, if they were really knowledgeable about shooting, they would have known immediately whether or not the gun's any good. Tony Boyer says in his book that I think he says he can evaluate a barrel in 35 shots. I think's what it says. I'm sure it says less than 50 shots. In other words, from his level of experience, he knows if a barrel is capable of winning in 50 shots or less. And I got to tell you, when I take these brand new guns out that I build, I usually know within 2 or 3 or 4 shots. And usually, say I take one out. Like your gun's a perfect example. You're telling me I only put 4 shots through it. Right? So I put one to get on. That was my fouling cider shot to get the scope on the paper. And then I shot a group. And I shot shots number 2, 3, 4. What's the group did I just say? 0.6 something, right? But it's a little triangle, right? So see, the shape of the group tells you something. Again, if you have a lot of experience. And so what you're telling me is I only shot that gun 4 times, right?
0.63. Yep.
0.63. Okay, so the group went 0.63. So what do I know from that? Well, the only thing I know positively for sure is A, the gun is safe, there's nothing wrong with it, and B, that is not a bad barrel. I don't know how good a barrel it is yet, because that's not enough rounds to find out, and you got to realize, by doing nothing but shooting it, cleaning it, breaking it in, it's going to get smaller automatically. That's not doing anything. No seating depth work, no powder work, no primer work. But what I knew about that gun is if shots number 2, 3, 4 go 0.63, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, I don't know what its potential is, but I know the potential is good. But, so anyways, all these experiences with buying all those custom guns, and I bought about, I don't think I bought 20, but somewhere in there. You know what I mean? I bought quite a few of them. I spent a lot of money as a kid. And I just, each one of them taught me something that I said, well, I'm going to always do this, or I'm never going to do this. And that's just been what we've done ever since the beginning. That's why we're sitting here loading ammo. That's the answer. You know something, too? And every now and then, so people, do you get ones that don't shoot? Well, of course we do. We get ones that don't shoot. The issue is the customer never gets those ones. And 9 times out of 10, what that is it's just a barrel that is not up to the level of what we want it to be. But what made me think of that is there's a gun standing right here in the corner over there. It's a .308 Winchester. it will accept factory ammo. Now, I'm not going to show it to you because there's a reason I don't want you to see it. But I kept that gun. It shoots one hole. It's a one-hole gun. It shoots 1 to 2/10 of an inch with factory ammunition. Okay, but there's a receiver on that gun that a guy, well, I will say this much, it's a titanium receiver, and we were thinking about using his receivers. Well, when the receiver came, you realize I blueprint my receivers. Now, not bats, yay bat, but I blueprint almost all my other receivers, which means basically go over them all and make them perfect. Well, when you're making, just like this brass, when you're making something perfect, you find out how imperfect it is, right? You're beginning to see the flaws in it, which you wouldn't have seen before. All right, so I put that receiver in the lathe, and I started going all over to true everything up. And man, there was problems. Again, that's all I'm going to say. There was problems. And I called the guy up, and I said, you know, I don't want to use this receiver. I said, there's too many things I say about it that's not right. And you know what he said? Tough luck. Tough luck. I said, what? You're not going to send my money back? No. He said, there's nothing wrong with it. I said, well, I see a lot of stuff wrong with it. And again, I'm not going into it because it's not the idea to destroy his business. But the receiver had lots and lots and lots of issues. So, you know, I don't know what that receiver cost, $1,300 titanium receiver. What was I going to do with it? Right? So what I did is, I had and this is a positive thing. We don't use them anymore. But I had a Hart barrel, H-A-R-T. And they used to make, they still make good button barrels. And so I had this Hart barrel there, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to use that for. And I had a stock from another project. So I went ahead and put the gun all together, right? Like I said, it shoots awesome. But I couldn't give it to a customer. You know what I mean? It just, there's issues with it. So, again, it was just a learning process, right? And really, before a guy starts building guns, he ought to buy a bunch of them. Really. Buy a bunch of them from different people. And take them all out and shoot them and stuff, because you can learn so much. It's like, okay, this is good, this is bad, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do this.
Well, ultimately, with that gun you're talking about, if you've done the work to it and you fix all the
there's
problems,
other issues. There's
other issues other than that.
Yes, there's certain things you can't fix. In other words, again, I don't want to give away too much because it's not the idea, but primary extraction, the way that the ejector is, the way that the extractor is, the timing on it, there can be a lot of things wrong with the receiver. And there was, and he didn't want to fix it. He thought that was good enough. Well, here's the thing. So, you know, obviously I did blueprint it, and I built a gun out of it, and the gun shoots good, but I would not give it to a customer. There's just no way. I would not sell that to a customer. I use it for my beater gun. I mean, like when we're going out in the brush or ride horses or whatever, I just use it as a beater gun, because if it gets beat up, I don't care. But it shoots dang good. Alright, we're actually making progress here. It's only been, what time did you guys get here? 7:30 or 8?
That's probably a little after 8 before we got here.
Well, we started at 8.
It was nearly 7:40 before you called me to say that you had just talked to Scott, and then we waited 15 minutes or so to leave, and we stopped at the grocery store.
Well, if you got started at 8:30, it is now 4:30, and we took time to eat.
We've listened to all your Chuck Norris jokes.
Right. Those aren't all Chuck Norris jokes. There's lots more.
We're going to do 1,000 of these before we can go home. Whoa!
This is a mess.
Well, they all look like they're the same length.
You can feel the thousands. I don't think you can say 1,000. I need where'd the trash can? All right, I need your, oh, you already got it. You're way ahead of me. We need to get that bolt out of that. I need the bolt, and then I need to take the firing pin out. I've showed this. I think I've showed this before. I don't know.
I don't think you have. 'Cause I was going to ask you to do it.
All right. So this is out of a bat HR. We're going to need the whole gun. So this is out of a bat HR. Oh, this is a dang left-handed one. Ah.
Don't you touch my gun.
Yeah, well, I forgot that it is. So I almost grabbed it and turned it the wrong direction. So you see, this is in the cock position, right? And if this is the hanger that's on the firing pin itself, right? The pin goes the whole way down through. If you turn this way, it would be in the fired position, right? It would turn and drop down in, and then the firing pin would stick out. If you do that with your hands, you better be pretty dang strong to turn it back, because you're not going to be able to. So when you go to do this, you want to grab it, push it in, and turn it that way. Okay, don't turn it the wrong way, and then take the firing pin out. Okay, it's actually really good design. Not original design, but good design, and very well executed. All this bat stuff, I mean, I know I keep saying that, but they do a really good job. So what we're going to do is we're going to run all these pieces of brass into that chamber. And why are we doing that? The reason we're doing that is because we're working with minimum specs, and we want to make sure it actually goes in the gun before we do a whole bunch more work. And we don't want live, oh crud, it's left-handed. Oh shoot, it's on the wrong side, see? Normally I throw them out right there. Alright, well somebody's going to have to sit over here. I hate left-handed. I do.
That'll be edited out too.
Now, I'm assuming this gun is clean down in there, right?
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Well, you can't stick brass in a dirty chamber. This is going to be hard. Normally it's easy. Right hand is easy. All right, you ready? Catch them when they come out. They're going to come out right here. Ready? You're going to have to be closer than that. Ready? Nope. There. Hand them off. Make it go around the loop or something.
So if they're not working, what's going to happen?
The bolt won't close.
Twice.
3 shots, you're out.
Once one or two of them go in, because it's Lapua brass, in all likelihood, they're all going in. But there's only one way to know, and that's to actually do it. This is a solid bottom single shot, and let me have it. And I want guys to I've showed this before, but see, look how nice it goes. Right? And nobody wants single shots. They think they don't. I should really say that too if you're filming. So everybody thinks they don't want a single shot until they get one. As soon as they get one, they're like, oh man, this thing's awesome. Look at the way the brass lays right there in that tray. And then it just goes straight into the chamber. So it doesn't beat up your brass. It doesn't beat up the bullets. It's just, for these great big cartridges, it's by far and away the best system. Because these things don't feed. Unless you put them in a detachable box magazine, I mean, single shot's the way to go. It's not like you're ever going to need more than one shot anyways. And even if you do, I got guys that put those nylon cheek pieces right on here with the cartridge holders in them. You can go just as fast as a repeater.
I've got one. I took it off coming out here.
You do have one?
Yeah. And I got the little bipods that I had bolted on the front.
Bipods, that's something else too that I just had a guy asking me about that. Well, that guy that has the gun, that 2 guns that'll shoot under ½ inch at 400, he was just asking me about, he's getting different groups shooting over a bag and shooting over a bipod. Well, that's very typical. A lot of times, if you sight your gun in on a bipod, well then you should hunt with it on a bipod. If you sight your gun in off of a sandbag or off of a tripod rest, a pedestal, I can't speak today, then you should definitely shoot your gun off of something soft.
That could be what my issue was then, because this got sighted in off of the little triangular bench
Pedestal, yes.
pedestal for the front, and then I was shooting it off the bipod.
No, that is very, very typical.
Because it was shooting very good at 525, and then I was shooting at that mule deer at 610. The first shot, don't know where it went. It went over it. That's all we knew. Yeah.
Okay, well there you go.
And then the second shot missed again, high. We didn't see no dirt, no nothing kick up. Well, I shot twice with no ear protection. I'm like, I've got to go back to four-wheeler and get my muffs. So four-wheeler's about 60 yards from me. But once I got back to the four-wheeler, where we was laying, there was zero wind. Well, I got back to where the four-wheeler was at, and it was probably blowing 15 miles an hour. Well, I had my Kestrel with me, so I keyed everything back in, standing there at the four-wheeler before I went back. Well, then it told me, for whatever reason, to drop one click in elevation. Well, I get back up there, and I dropped it one click in elevation, and just clipped its spine.
Okay.
After I dropped it one click, the third shot.
So the point is, it was still shooting high.
Yes.
And that's very typical. You go off of something that is soft to a hard bipod, and you get it going high. That's very typical. So if you're going to, here's the rule. If you're going to shoot whatever you're going to hunt off of, that is the way you sight in.
Lesson learned. I know now.
It is notorious for lead sleds. I don't know, I think I was talking to you guys up at the shop about that. Lead sleds are notorious for doing that. So a guy will sight his gun in on the lead sled, and then when he takes it and puts it, say, over a backpack or over, it'll have a radically different point of impact. So however you're going to hunt, that's the way you sight in.
So even your rifle that you build that shoots factory, you would still do it this way, same way?
Yep. Now I wouldn't use loaded rounds, you realize. I wouldn't cycle loaded rounds unless, the only way I would cycle loaded rounds with a, with a primer and the whole deal is if, say it was a dangerous game gun and you were going Cape Buffalo hunting or something like that. I would cycle loaded rounds then to make certain that they all function.